Everyone thinks he or she is the best football expert on the planet.
I'm playing for Pride now. And my pride's gone.
We're very passionate people here.
Well, hello.
We're ready to come for the W, yeah?
These girls will smoke you, man.
Yeah. Hello and welcome again to the Mirror Game Walkthrough. It's Wednesday, which means we're here to debate the very latest gaming news from around the gaming industry. Joining me again today is Matt Aldus, who joined us last week. Hi again, Matt. You all right?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me again.
No problem at all. And coming from the substitutes bench to a starting position this week is Lewis Barton. Lewis, how you doing, mate?
I'm doing great, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
No problem at all. Lewis, obviously this is your first time on the walkthrough, so if you could just give us a quick rundown of your role at Mirror Gaming and give us a bit of detail about you, please.
Yeah, so I'm a gaming content creator for Mirror Gaming, and I mainly cover FIFA and Football Manager. So yeah, more on the football side than the other gaming side. But yeah, I love doing anything to do with FIFA. It's all I really play, really, isn't it? Football games. So yeah, it's my field of expertise. But yeah, hopefully I can bring some FIFA knowledge to this podcast.
That would be perfect. Thank you very much, Lewis. Great to have you on. Yeah, I wish you all the best in your first appearance on the walkthrough. So welcome. Today we've got some really, really hot topics to talk about. We've got The Last of Us Episode 1 review. We've got some FIFA 23 controversy. We've got the Warzone 2 Season 2 possibly being delayed, as well as Starfield. No, not again. We've also got Lewis talking about what he looks forward to in EA Sports FC later on this year. And we can also talk about the first major Fortnite update of the year as well in 2023. But for our first topic, there's only one place to start, really, and that's The Last of Us TV show Episode 1. For all of you've not been around for it, the HBO's Last of Us is based on the video game The Last of Us from 2013. Episode 1 aired on Sunday in the US and on Monday in the UK. It's officially the second largest HBO debut since 2010. More than 4.7 million viewers tuned in for the first episode. It's a crazy amount of viewers. I will say, from the start, there's going to be some spoilers. So if you haven't seen Episode 1, feel free to tune out and tune back in later on, because we will be going through Episode 1 in detail. So please, if you haven't seen Episode 1, we don't want to spoil it for you. You've got our permission to turn off and then come back on at a later time. But if you have watched Episode 1, then you can enjoy our roundup of the episode with us. Matt, I know that you've watched it, as have I. Lewis, I know you haven't watched all of it, but you've watched like a recap of it. Shall we just go through the first episode first of all and just give overall thoughts on how you thought it was? Matt, do you wanna get us cracking?
Oh, it was a good one. It was a good one. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, I can't think of a time where I've watched the opening episode of something and I've just genuinely just been all in for the whole thing. There's only one thing that I was disappointed by, but I think that's more of it's a personal thing to me than it is to do with the actual writing or the acting or whatever. And that's the opening scene. And again, if anybody is watching and they haven't seen it and they're going to watch it, there's going to be spoilers. So the opening scene where they're on a talk show and the scientists are talking about how if fungi can if that can learn how to survive in warmer temperatures, then there's going to be this massive outbreak, and everything in that was brilliant. Like the script was good. I thought the description was really good. It was really realistic. It was really like, oh, this could happen, which made it very scary. However, I felt like I was completely taken out of the show before it even really started because of who they cast as the host of that chat show, who I know him as Big Head from Silicon Valley. And if you haven't watched Silicon Valley, it is a comedy, and the guy that plays Big Head is primarily a comedy actor. Albeit, like, fair enough, he's got a role, you know, a much better role, but like, you know, in a more serious thing or whatnot, and he's expanding his sort of acting horizons. But for me, that casting just really didn't lend itself to being able to keep me in it. I wished it was somebody who was anonymous, who I had no sort of prior experience to. Because that, for me, that just, like, I had to sort of get over that fact. I just think it was I think personally it was a poor casting choice on the basis of they picked a comedy actor to play a serious role in the opening scene of a very serious series, and that for me just, like, made me go, oh, what a minute, that's Big Head, and that just didn't allow me to fully get immersed into it straight off the bat. So I had to sort of wait until that had finished, and then I could go, right, okay, now I'll get into it.
Did you manage to rewatch that first scene?
Yeah, I went back and rewatched it. There's nothing wrong with the writing. It's purely me. I don't know why I have such strong feelings about it, but I do, and I wish they had cast somebody who is either a well-renowned, like, serious sort of actor. And I don't want to, because it's not fair, because, like, the dude's an actor, and he's got this role in this massive show, and like, you know, fair enough for that. But it's just from like a production or directing point of view, like, I don't really know why you would have someone who's been synonymous with comedy in the opening of a serious thing. It's if he was in it, like, a bit further down the line, like they cut back to it once you sort of allowed yourself to get immersed into it, I think that would have worked fine for me. But this is, like I say, a very personal sort of point of view on it, and I can't fault the scene itself, but I think the casting was slightly off.
So were you sort of seeing, rather than a talk show host, you were seeing Big Head?
Yeah. I was literally like, it's Big Head.
Like, waiting for him to do something like Big Head, like, the whole time, sort of.
Yeah, that's basically like, it just took me out of being able to be immersed in it, and I was so excited to be immersed in it that disappointment immediately felt quite big. In retrospect, it's not that big of a deal, but in that moment where I'd been so amped up to watch this series, it aired in the UK at 2 a.m. I got up at 6 in the morning to watch it before work, and before, like, my son was up, and, like, I had to watch it the minute I could muster the strength to climb out of bed, and so that I'd put in a lot of effort, and then that scene just completely threw me out of it off the rip. But I don't think it really, you know, it's not something I can really say, like, devalues or changes, like, the overall episode or whatnot. It's just a moment that I wish I didn't experience like that. Yeah. From a personal point of view.
That's really interesting that you say that, because I think the first scene for me, the way it starts out, there's a really nice turn to the atmosphere throughout that scene. And at the start, it does kind of feel like a bit of a comedy bit, and there's like laughter from the audience, and, like, the host is cracking jokes and stuff like that. And then John Hannah's character, who, I mean, he's just incredible in everything he does. You know, from the Mummy days, he's been an incredible actor, but the way he grips the atmosphere and changes it from, you know, it's not a big deal, to, you know, this could be the end of humanity. And you can, like, towards the end, like, there's this deadly silence in the room that you can feel. And I felt it watching it at home as well. When I was watching it, like, you know, people in the room, it just felt silent as you watch it. And it
when
had
I watched it back, when I watched it back, I felt I could feel that. But at the time, I was just going,
what is it there?
Why is Big Ed here? Like it's Big Ed. Like that's all that was going around in my mind was like, oh look, it's Big Ed from Silicon Valley, and then my next thought was, oh, what a rubbish way to start it, and that was completely. That's on me. I would take all this responsibility on myself. Like it's a me thing. It's not like writer's thing or it wasn't even acted badly. Like I can't. I feel like at this point where as I'm saying it all out loud that I'm just like trying to find something wrong with it. But that's how I felt in the moment. I can't. Yeah. I wish I didn't feel like that, but I did. Yeah. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like watching it back, you sort of see that it's a chat show. They've got a couple guys on, and then one starts talking about how this thing can develop, and it's like an awesome moment. But it was just lost on me the first time round.
I can imagine people were sitting at home watching that scene, and they were having like their significant other be like, "Is that true? Is that true?"
It felt so real
because it was
like
it was really thought provoking the way that you're explaining it in such detail, and the host maybe why they cast a comedy actor in that role. The way the host was trying to bat off his concerns, and he was just kept going and kept going, and he didn't dismiss the host at all. He just very calmly, it was the calm way he said it, very calmly explained how humanity could be decimated by this thing in a very calm way. And I think that's the delivery of that was incredible. But
and how he didn't think it was that far off, and like all of that stuff. Yeah, like you're absolutely right. It was a well needed scene. And do you know what? Like watching it back, the other thing that I realized about it, which I think is great that they did it, like that they opened with that scene, it immediately squashes all of the fears that you have about Spores not being in it.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it described it in such a realistic, human sort of this could be on the news right now kind of way that you immediately you're like, well, they've clearly thought about this very, very carefully, and the way that they've managed to intertwine the game story into reality is just we knew, like they'd been saying it in interviews, they've been saying it like, we've been careful, we've been talking about it a lot, and we want to make sure it's coming from like a realistic point of view, and we're all going but Spores aren't in it, Spores aren't in it, and then that opening scene is like, oh, that's why Spores aren't in it, because this way is more real.
Yeah, exactly.
It's believable.
100%. Lewis, any thoughts initially on what you've seen so far?
Yeah, from what I've seen so far, which is limited. I've seen that it's got a lot of praise for how it sort of didn't assume everyone had played the game. It opened it up so you can get new people watching it and understanding what's happening. And I think that's where a lot of video game adaptations have gone wrong in the past. They have just sort of had that thought that, oh, people who watch this would have played the game, they'll know what's happening, and people who don't will end up getting lost really quickly. And I think that's what it's done well so far. It's let people who haven't seen it or played it, understand what's happening, but then it's still got plenty of little Easter eggs and statements and facts which people who have played the game will be like, oh yeah, I know that. And it seems like it's done brilliant so far. Obviously Pedro Pascal's a fantastic actor, and I've seen that Bella Ramsey she's been really good in it as well. I've seen she's a bit grittier than the character in the game as well, and it seems, which I've seen is understandable because the world they're living in, you have to be, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a few comments already. Tom, thank you again for joining us. He says, really harrowing opening, immediately set the tone and established the context of the world they're introducing you to. Yeah, exactly right. I think that kind of brings people in who haven't played the game and sets the tone for the rest of the series, really. And if for people who haven't played the game, it's gonna get a bit darker, so yeah, just stick with it. I'm not gonna spoil it, obviously, but it's gonna get even darker. Overall, though, I mean, all the way as someone who's played the game and watched people play it through a number of times, I just thought that the whole thing was just there was so much pressure on it, and I thought they just delivered in every aspect. And I think it just showed to me, it proved how strong the source material was, how strong the game story was itself, and the narrative in the game. They didn't have to take any crazy creative decisions, and they took real attention to detail in terms of matching things to the game. But I think that was important, not because to satisfy people who played the game, but because the game narrative and story is so good, they didn't need to divert from that at all. And I think that's where it really shines through, that source material. And especially, I think, again, spoiler alert. So if you still haven't turned off, if you still haven't watched episode 1, you could go now. But how they sucked you in with Nico Parker as Sarah was incredible in their first episode. How they kind of sucked you in with Sarah, and they got you, just like the game, they get you attached to Sarah, and they get you to like almost love her as a character and know how kind she is and her character, and you know, you get the audience to like her. And then the death scene, you know, when Joel is holding Sarah, it's just like the game, just how it happens in the game. I mean, I was like, when that happened in the game, I was like, what? I could not believe that that's how they started the game, because I just assumed that he was going to be with that little girl the whole way through. It hadn't occurred to me that they were a different character. So to see that on a TV screen, and to see acted in such a way, in almost mirroring and it, to me, it had a more profound effect watching it again on the big screen, and in the way they did it. And they didn't change anything really about that scene from the video game, but the way they delivered it, it just showed, if you get the casting right, and you make sure that you've got the right cast to deliver the characters that you want, you don't need to mess with the original source material. Tom said, I was in tears. Yeah, I can put my hand up. I was crying my eyes out, like, at that scene, because it just hits you so hard. And it was perfection for me, that scene. I don't know what you thought, Matt.
The way Pedro Pascal acted that scene was just like, because I haven't played the game, but I know that part of the story. I've seen the opening kind of cutscenes and things of the game, and I've had friends that have played it and stuff. And so I knew that was coming. But the thing, like you say, the way that they managed to attach the audience to Sarah by focusing on her so heavily in the beginning, and kind of how she was, you know, she would go and visit her neighbor, and she would go and do all of this, just generally kind things, and she was just a really nice, well-rounded person. What was the hardest hitting for me wasn't when he's knelt down and he's cuddling her and he's, like, you know, crying and all sorts that you'd expect, although fantastically acted. What was the best part for me, whether you call it the best, but the best part for me was the moment he realized something had happened, and like, because he was just like, you know, they got in that whole thing, fall down the hill and whatnot, and then he's sort of just assuming in his head that she's still fine. And then the moment he realizes is just that it was a split second switch. You could see it's just so fantastically acted, because you really felt that switch from we got to get out of here to what oh my god, like everything, my whole world is falling apart now. And even though the world is literally falling apart, and it's not until that moment that you see his world fall apart. And that was, and even then he's going, you're fine, it's okay, like, you know, trying to sort of be the strong one. And those moments, it was the subtleties that I knew he was going to get right, in the acting when he was cast. That's why I always thought that he was the perfect person to cast for this role, because you've seen it in like The Mandalorian and whatnot, and just throughout his career that he's really good at subtle moments and subtle changes. I mean, being in The Mandalorian and acting with a mask on for most of it, and it was still amazing. Like, you know, that to me just speaks volumes to him as an actor. But the cast as a whole was just so believable. So
Absolutely.
believable.
Even the crawl, that kind of desperate crawl to Ellie. Sorry, to Sarah.
To Sarah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That desperate crawl to Sarah when he, obviously because he's been shot, and then he realizes that Sarah's been shot, and that desperate crawl that matches the video game, you know, to a T. If you see it side by side, it's exactly the same. And what really hits you as well, I think, is that you don't get that long to process that moment. A lot of the times with TV and film, it's a very long, drawn-out scene when something like that happens. But the way it just cuts off and then goes to, you know, such a long period later on the line, you're like, what we've gone from, like, it's such a shock to see that moment, and then you go so far into the future. Again, just like the game, I think it had exactly the same impact on me that the game did. So, yeah, it was just incredible. The show overall, again, attention to detail, like some of the cut scenes when they're in Joel's apartment and he's on the settee and she's like, "Well, what am I gonna do?" And, you know, I'm sure you'll figure something out. And, you know, when he pushes her in the room and she's like, you know, screaming like exactly how Ellie did in the game. And then just talking to just generally, you know, moments where you just go, I've been there before. Like, you know, it's weird when you play the game, you just feel like you're engrossed in it.
There were so many moments that when I didn't know they were cutscenes, but I knew they were cutscenes. Yeah. That's what I thought they did well. Like, I know it's a game, and a lot of people will watch it and know it's a game, but there were so many cutscenes that I didn't recognize, but you just know they're cutscenes because of the way they filmed them. It's like there's like this slight change in how it's presented and how it's filmed and the cinematography and stuff to sort of match the game without copying it. I think that's what was most impressive. It matched the games, and since the first episode, I've seen some of the cutscenes where people have been comparing them side by side, and the way it matches those scenes but without copying is so impressive, because they've taken the script and they've taken the source material and they've taken the shots and they've recreated them, but they haven't looked to try to make sure that they're like, you know, it's the exact same angle of the game, but the feel is all the same, everything's the same. Like the angle, the shots, for example, with Ellie and Joel while he's laying on the sofa, that was quite impressive because it's not exactly the same, but you still the feel, it feels exactly the same, but when you watch it objectively, it's not exactly the same. And I think they did that really well with all the cutscenes. Really,
yeah,
it's just I've
seen so many side by sides on Twitter and stuff. People have uploaded afterwards comparing the cutscenes to the real thing, and I think it just, like you mentioned earlier, Nathan, it just shows you how good the game is itself, and the dialogue and the cutscenes, that a big company like HBO can make this show and then keep so much of the original structure.
Absolutely. I do have to just point out something that I was really disappointed about, because I didn't feel like it was exactly the same as the game that I played, because in my game, my character wandered around for about half an hour not knowing where to go, and also threw an accidental grenade at the wall, and that wasn't in the game, so that wasn't in the TV show. Sorry, so I'm really disappointed with that.
Imagine they remade the series just from your gameplay, just from your, like, so exactly like scene for scene. He's accidentally thrown a grenade over there.
Yeah, just like, spinning around on the spot, like trying to figure out the controls and how he moves, and accidentally throwing grenades and dropping weapons
which buttons
everywhere.
Jump.
Yeah, exactly. Jumping on the spot and stuff. Yeah. So that wasn't in the game, but Yeah, no, obviously joking, but it was. I was just as soon as it finished, I was like, "Oh, when is episode 2? Like, I wish I could binge it all."
It feels too long. Yeah, it feels too long.
It does. But yeah, let us know in the comments what you thought. Did you watch it? Let us know what you thought. Obviously, I know Tom has given us his views on the comments, but please, if you've got any, if you didn't like it, let us know. Let us know why, and we can debate it and stuff. Tom again says not enough looking in drawers for scissors and tape to craft stuff with. Yeah, exactly. They didn't get that in the show. Not enough drawer opening for me.
Yeah.
Bin it. Put it in the bin.
And he got the assault rifle so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, you don't level up that quickly, do you, on the game? So
he got an assault rifle so quickly, like within the first hour of playing.
Yeah.
Were there any Easter eggs that you guys noticed in it for that you sort of would, mention now?
Yeah, absolutely. There was the DVD that Joel and Sarah watched at the very beginning. That was something that was in the game at a later period, and they couldn't get that in, obviously, with the game because it was later on in the game. But they thought it was important to get that particular film in the series. So that was really cool. And then Matt also we published on TikTok.
Yeah, I don't know if it was I don't know if it's an Easter egg because it's probably going to play an integral part of the series. But right at the end, right up on the top building, I spotted a clicker, and it was just stood up there, real small. Wasn't supposed to be immediately spotted, but there's one up there, and as they're heading out into that sort of like wilderness, which is exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those where they're hoping that the fans will pick up on it and it will build that excitement for the next episode now because, like you said, it was such a small thing. You had to sort of slow it down or watch it again to notice it. But it's got everyone excited for what role is that going to play in the next episode.
Absolutely. Matt, I just wanted to get your thoughts on when Joel's he's going through like the underground, like the is it like the underpass bit and going through like the bits to try and get up to where Ellie is and you see the fungi and he's like and it's all over the wall with the person and like attached to the wall, because that's the first time we see, obviously we saw that kind of zombie attack right at the start, but that's the first time we see like the fungi and what it can do to a human in the TV show. What did you think of that moment?
I kind of felt I was way more at that stage. I was way more invested in like Joel and what they were trying to do, and I didn't necessarily think like I because I kind of expect you expect to see that sort of stuff. I think at that stage the more important part for me was the story, getting invested in the characters, and learning what the relationships were between the characters. But I thought it was done well. Like again, it's all very subtle stuff, but it's not, not in your face stuff. Like, because I think it goes to show, like the fact that you see a clicker right at the end, really small in the top corner. It just goes to show that's not supposed to be the focus of this episode. Like the focus of this episode is the introduction of the characters and the introduction of how you should feel about the characters and what the relationships are between the characters and all that sort of stuff. And I think that was more. I was like if I go back and watch it again, which I will do before the second. Normally, what I do is I watch the episode before the next episode comes out, so like the day before, just to sort of like remind myself what happened. And that's normally where I catch more things that I didn't see before, because when I first watch it, I'm not trying to take everything in. I'm more just trying to be taken away with the story. So there's lots of parts that I kind of would be like, that doesn't matter right now. I'm focusing on this. And then when I go back and watch it a second time, that's when all of those things become more interesting, or they make more sense, or there might be some foreshadowing there that I missed, or something like that. Because I think I think foreshadowing is it's so hard to do well, because 9 times out of 10, whenever I'm watching something, I just know that that's a bit of foreshadowing. Something's going to happen with that later, and it kind of, a lot of times it's just done quite like too obviously. But I think that they've got a lot of bearing in mind we know the story. Yeah. They've still got the foreshadowing like down to a T, and all of those little parts, like they might mean something bigger, like later down the line, or they might be linked to a particular person or a particular character. Like that could be a certain dude on the wall with like covered in fungi, but it might be someone that is later on referred to, and you just don't know. Like, but so I think getting that sort of stuff right is really difficult. But I do think that there's a lot I missed because I was so focused on the characters.
You talk about foreshadow. Are you the type of person who like noticed that there wasn't any water in the glass in like Shutter Island? Like, were you that? Yeah. I know.
Yeah,
I
I'm that
you'd be
guy.
type of,
Yeah, I'm like, like literally within the first, however long it is, the moment there was the point with the glass in Shutter Island, and also he wouldn't write in anything. When he had a pencil instead of like a pen. And I was like, I know what's going on here.
You must be
See, I'm the
really
opposite.
annoying to watch stuff with.
I'm the opposite.
Did you miss all that stuff?
I gotta go on YouTube after and search like 90 things you would have missed in Shutter Island, and that makes sense now.
No, I'm such a like a film buff in terms of writing and directing and things like that, those are the things that impress me more than the main story, is how they deal with those little things. It's like, you need a big twist, but you need to make it realistic. So how do you not give the twist away whilst making those scenes realistic? And it seems like they've got a lot right.
Yeah. So next week, Monday, will be called Infected, episode 2. The trailer is out now. I don't tend to watch episode trailer just because I want to save the best bits for the episode.
Yeah, I'm
but
the same.
The trailer is out there, so if you want to go and watch episode 2, the name is called Infected, so I'm pretty sure we're going to see maybe a clicker or 2 in episode 2, but we'll have to wait and see with that one. But yeah, let us know what you thought of episode 1 in the comments. If you had any thoughts or anything, please let us know. We'll debate them when we get through some of the comments. And thank you very much, Tom, for your input so far. Really appreciate it. And Jasmine, I hope you switched off if you haven't seen it, and you can come back on now. Everyone who's watched
How are they gonna know?
Come back. I don't know. Tell your friends if they're watching. Come back, please. You can come back. They'll know somehow. On to our next topic then, because there's been a bit of controversy today with FIFA 23 and EA Sports. Not something we're expected today, Lewis, but it has happened today, and we've been all over it on Mirror Gaming. So for all the latest, go and check out our Mirror Gaming news channel, and you'll be able to see all the latest news on there. But just a lowdown of what happened. So various FIFA 23 Foot Centurions player items, including Zlatan Ibrahimovic, appeared to get nerfed by EA Sports ahead of the Team of the Year promo release. Various social media users reported that Ibrahimovic's Foot Centurions item, along with a few others, have been changed retrospectively, with some of his individual attributes being reduced. Twitter user @BSoccerTeam was among the first to notice the changes. So just to give people an idea of what this means. So basically there was a promo release a couple of weeks ago where EA Sports released some player items into the game that were really powerful, including Ibrahimovic, and loads of people were looking forward to using him for his individual attributes, basically. Yesterday, it appeared that some of his most powerful attributes, for example, his agility and balance, which really is important in FIFA, had been reduced. So if you think of it that way, it's almost like because people have spent time and money to get these items, and for them to be then made worse later on down the line ahead of another promo where we'll have other special cards, it looked a bit dodgy. So it's like you buying a car with, a 0 to 60 time and a top speed, and then as soon as you drive it off the lot, they release their next model and they release a software patch that makes yours slower to try and get you to buy the new one. That's basically what it would have been like if that was to happen. But obviously we reached out to EA Sports for comment, and EA Sports responded to Mirror Gaming's request for comment, confirming that this issue had now been resolved and that the impacted players have had their attributes switched back to the original correct ones. I think the topic here for us guys is to just work out what we thought happened with that, because there's a couple of theories in terms of what could have happened. Lewis, you want to talk us through some of the ways this could have played out, or why that could have been, why that mistake could have been made?
It's very fishy, isn't it? It looks a bit dodgy because there's been rumors and everything like that about EA Sports sort of nerfing promo cards right before a new promo, trying to make players, more excited for the next one, and then spend more money pretty much. So a lot of people have been thinking this, especially the Team of the Year, the biggest, if not one of the biggest promos in the FIFA calendar this is. And the Foot Centurions promo, like you said, Ibrahimovic was a standout player. He's not known for his pace usually, so what made him so good and usable was that they massively boosted his pace, his agility, his balance, and his stamina. He's getting on a bit now. I think he's 41, so he doesn't have that much stamina. So when he's got 80 plus stamina in game now, that made him way more expensive than he would usually be. So when people obviously logged on to FIFA whenever, yesterday or today, and saw that his stamina dropped into 60s and made him so much less usable, his price plummeted, so people lost millions of coins if you had a few of them, or even had one. His price went down drastically. So there's this theory that EA are nerfing these cards right before the next promo, just so they can pretty much make some more money. I think people will go and buy packs for the next one to improve their squad, and I can say I've experienced that as well. I got a player from the Winter Wildcards promo, Dimitri Payet, and he was the best player I've used during that promo. When the promo was live, he was one of the best players I've used in a long time. He was scoring 2-3 a game. He felt amazing. And as soon as that promo ended and the Foot Centurions promos began, he's just dropped off massively. So, the theory is that they're nerfing players, but what's happened here is they've done it visibly. There's a lot of theory and debate that they would reduce those attributes and not make it known in game, as it might have been a mistake that this time they've done it for the public to see, and a lot of people think they caught them out here, and that's why they've quickly changed them back.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because EA hasn't actually confirmed why they were changed, or why there was an error with the attributes, and it'll be interesting to see what they come back with. Obviously, there was a thing with Team 1, wasn't there, as well, where some of the attributes were visibly different, and that was sorted out quite quickly, like a few hours after the release of the team. That what makes this one more fishy is that the Ibrahimovic item was released on January the 6th, and it's now January the 18th. So if the attributes are changed between then and now, why haven't they said anything about it? We have asked EA to clarify, what exactly happened, whether it was a visual issue, whether it was just a mistake from a visual side. Maybe there was a mistake with, maybe he was blended with another player or something, or there was some kind of issue there, or it looks to be a visual issue, because I haven't actually seen anyone complain about the card feeling worse in game. I think people have been speculating, but I haven't actually seen anyone talk about that. So, but as of now, it's been fixed, and Mirror Gaming has reached out to EA Sports just to clarify, a couple of things around, were these stats ever changed and stuff, and we'll let you know if we hear back from there. But it's an interesting one. Matt, from your point of view, as someone who has played FIFA recently, actually, which I was really surprised about, but did that make sense to you? I hope we explained it as clear as possible. And two, what's your take on what's happened as a non-FIFA player?
FIFA aren't the only people that do this, or EA aren't the only people that do this. It happens in Warzone. Like, you buy a bundle, a new bundle comes out, and that gun in that bundle is top of the range, and everyone's using it, and then a week later that gun gets nerfed, and you've spent money on that, and now you haven't got the gun that you bought, you paid for. So it was not unusual to hear that, because in the world that I sort of am more familiar with, similar thing happens. What my questions would be, was it just the players, like, from the last promo that were affected? Because I don't.
That's how it appears. Yeah.
Because so if it wasn't all the players, then it's been done on purpose, in my view. Like, because otherwise all the players would be affected.
It's been a
Like,
constant,
it's not
through FIFA.
Yeah, there's a few. I would put this kind of players being nerfed category in the kind of in the skill based matchmaking and momentum sort of theory bracket.
Skill based hit reg.
So there's that in Warzone, but then in FIFA there's talk about like momentum shifting, and if players score a goal, then they're more likely to score a next one, and then the momentum shifts the other way, and you tend to get like a couple of goals quite quickly, and also again, these are all like theories that you hear from FIFA, but if you play against like a god team, for example, you actually have more chance of winning or being on par, because they try and make the game as even as possible, that kind of thing. So these are all theories that, to be honest, I don't agree with. I think it's very, it can be very subconscious, and there's a lot of kind of bias going on and stuff. But I think with this one, what they need to do, in my opinion, is come out very clearly and say, we've never nerfed cards. This was a visual issue only. We can prove it. It won't happen again. Like, just confirm everything, because at the moment, the way they've come out and said we've rectified the issue, they're back to the original stats. Like, no, don't worry about it. It feels very empty, with like there's still questions to be answered. Like, why were the attributes dropped in the first place? Was it a mistake? Was it done for a reason? Why are they then going back? Why is the decision been made to put them back? Is it only because people found out, or were you always going to do those kind of questions?
It does feel like it's like, oh, I've been caught, so we'll put it back. That's what it feels like to me. I mean, I don't know if that's the case, but it certainly has a smell of that.
Yeah, the fact that it was, the changes were made with no announcement whatsoever, and then they only made the announcement after people started calling them out for their actions. It shows it's like, oh, you caught us, oh, we'll change them back now. And if no one had pointed, if it's like a minor change, a few players have had minor changes, they might not be noticed. If someone's stamina drops by 2, but Ibra's drop was about 27. So, it was a drastic change, and they got caught, whilst there were a bunch of other players as well who had very minimal changes made, and they were only then seen because everyone was like, oh, well, if Ibra's changed, some others might be changed as well.
Absolutely, and it sets a really dangerous precedent. If EA can alter attributes retrospectively, if they can't, and this was a visual issue only, great. But if they've got the capability to do that, that sets a dangerous precedent for promos, because then that opens up a whole can of worms in terms of what they are able to do with these items after players had put time and let's be honest, money into purchasing loot boxes to get a chance of these cards, and then obviously buying them on the transfer market with millions of coins if they haven't got that. So yeah, Matt, what
I just think that even if they do clarify, you still don't know if that's the real reason behind it. Like, you mentioned about Warzone skill based hit registration, which for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's basically based on how good you are at the game. That determines how many bullets register as being hits, so that if a player with that isn't as good as the game as you, all of their bullets register and only some of yours register, then it gives them a more even chance of being able to get you. But
is that something you subscribe to? You think that's in the game?
Well, I think it's very suspicious that there's a patent for it under like I can't remember if it's Activision. I think it's Activision. My camera's out of focus. But
I thought you were waving to someone.
yeah,
Hello.
but yeah, that like so. I think it's very suspicious. I'm neither for nor against it, like in terms of whether it's true or not. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's true, because it's kind of like when I was a kid, my dad used to say common things commonly happen and rare things rarely do, and with this, it's like it feels like, well, it's quite obvious that a big company trying to make more money would want to make a game more fair for the majority of players, and the majority of players happen to be bad players. So how do we make them want to play the game as we move into this, or as we've moved into this like online world of playing against different teams or different players or whatever, and it's actually down to that person's better than you, and so that makes the worst player not want to play the game anymore. So it makes perfect sense that there would be these mechanisms in place, like something like skill-based hit registration, and then a patent found for it that I don't, by the way, I want to clarify, I don't know if the patent is exactly like worded like skill-based hit registration or anything, but there's a patent that seems to be the thing that would provide that mechanism to work. Like, so it wouldn't surprise me one way or the other. And I just think like the bigger these studios get and the bigger the developers get, the more chance that you know, someone sat in a boardroom and gone, how do we make more money? And someone says, well, we could just nerf the players before the promotions, and then that means that people will be like, oh, my player's not as good, I need better players, and then they'll buy the new packs or whatever.
That's the theory.
That seems
yeah.
perfectly plausible. Like, but also it doesn't, at the same time, doesn't mean that it's true just because I think it or someone else thinks it. But it doesn't seem like a stretch to suggest that somebody's had that conversation within those walls.
Yeah, there was something similar with FIFA. I don't know if you remember, Lewis, but there was a thing about dynamic difficulty. Someone found a patent for dynamic difficulty in EA Sports, and EA Sports actually came out and said that this has never been used in any EA Sports game and never will be. And that patent was all about exactly what you said, Matt. It was to try and even the playing field between people who weren't very good and people who were really good, to try and make it as close as possible.
But why is there a patent if it never has been used and never will be?
Yeah.
Why?
I'll leave that to the audience to think about.
It just, I don't know, man. Like, like all of these things.
I don't know, man.
They just feel fishy, and it just feels like the response is always generic and always like, no, we've never done that, and you're like, well, you haven't proven you haven't done it. You haven't like show us the source code. Like, you know, if that's how it works.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I know Tom's on. Tom's listening, and he's commented a few times. Obviously, he plays Warzone as well. So, Tom, do you think there's the skill-based hit? What is it? Skill-based
hit registration.
Yeah. So, do you think that's in the game? Let us know. Jasmine, again, thank you so much for joining us today. She says this happens with every new League of Legends championship. When they release a new one, it's so strong, and then within 2 weeks, it gets nerfed into the ground. It's been every time for the past 10 years. Lol. Yeah, sounds familiar. She also said before it feels dismissive of the issue. Yeah, it was a bit of a dismissive statement on the way it read on the EA Sports FIFA Direct Twitter account was that it was so vague that if you didn't know this was going on, you wouldn't understand at all what this was about. And I think that was the point of it, to try and kind of minimize the talk around it. But I think it did the opposite.
The statement was very, very vague, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get it up now, actually. I'll get talk about yourselves.
Yeah, I was going to say, with Ibrahimovic, just a bit of context about why it was so big was the fact that that card was over 4 million coins 3 days ago. And then after the slight drop in stamina, which is a major factor in FIFA, he's dropped below 3 million. And that's a lot of coins, 4 million. So if you went out and purchased him for, 4 odd million coins, and then because of EA changing something about him, you then lost over 1 million coins, it's drastic.
Yeah, so even in
less.
the fix, they've probably still done some people dirty.
Oh yeah, and
I
the thing
don't.
is,
I
his
yeah.
price will probably stay the same, or it won't.
Yeah.
It won't go rise back up to 4 million again. There's no chance of
Yeah.
that because with
Yeah.
Team of the Year around the corner now, that hype of Foot Centurions, Ibrahimovic is gone.
And people with less coins will have less. They'll have to put more money on packs and stuff to get a team.
What
of
if
the
you?
year player
Yeah.
or
I mean,
team.
the
But
best.
just to
deal
put that
out
into
of that,
context, for 1 million coins, I've never had 1 million. I don't think I've ever had 1 million
Never.
coins in FIFA Ultimate
Oh,
Team.
I had it-
That's
I
how
think I had
many
it
coins
once.
that is.
I did it once in like
um,
FIFA 13 because I packed a Team of the Year Xabi Alonso, and
there you go.
that's the closest I ever got. But again, that came from me buying packs. So
Yeah, cool. Tom says he does. He agrees with you, Matt. I've seen too many clips from some of the top Warzone streamers that show it clear as day, losing fights they should not be losing. I've seen some with Tim the Tapman and Dr. Disrespect and Z-Laner as well. Some of them, like, you can, it looks quite obvious that they're hitting the target, but it looks like it doesn't register. Just for people who obviously haven't seen the statement that EA released. This was the statement that they released a couple of hours ago, following our reporting of it and asking them to comment. So this is on their public Twitter account. They said, "We have addressed an issue where some of the attributes were appearing differently for some Centurion player items." So they haven't said what the issue is.
that's it.
They haven't said how they fixed it. They haven't said if they've reverted. So the only reason that we know they've returned to normal was that EA told Mirror Gaming that they've reverted back to their original stats. And then if we look in game, it shows that the stats that Ibrahimovic now has matches what he had when he was released. So they have reverted back to original. But I think that was a thing for the public to say, like, if you're not like involved in this, like, you don't need to know. It's not a big issue type thing. Yeah, exactly.
What would be interesting is now that they've been reverted back, does the player still feel worse?
Well, I wouldn't know
That'd be,
because I've got no
interesting
chance
to
of
see.
getting him. I've got no chance of packing
Yeah.
him. So if anyone's got a God Squad who's watching, please just try him out. And see, see if he
Does he feel like significantly worse still? Like, because that would be interesting because then we know what happened.
Yeah, but again, that's still not kind of evidence. If one person says, "Oh, he feels a bit different," it's not like It's hard to
but I think the difference between 85 and 58 or 82 and 58 or whatever it was, like that drop, you're gonna notice that difference for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Stamina wise, you will. Yeah, stamina wise.
So I think I think it would be pretty easy to tell.
Yeah.
Whether or not it was an aesthetic thing of changing it back.
Yeah.
In terms of, because
That's the thing. Stamina will be the easiest one to tell because if his stamina bar is dropped to halfway after 45 minutes and then they've reverted it back, but it's still the same. It's just they haven't changed it. It's just for show.
I wish I could test it out. Honestly.
Yeah, me too.
I've got no chance of.
I'll have to
getting
ask
this player
EA.
item.
You send us a few Ibrahimovic's so we can try
Yeah.
out. Please.
Yeah, please. If you're watching, please send us a couple through or improve our pack look. That would be really helpful as well.
Yeah. It's not really been a. Would you class this as a mistake? Because I know EA have made quite a lot of mistakes this year. Because the biggest
Just
one
this year?
that comes to memory for me, well, yeah, since they've been going really with FIFA titles, but the biggest one that comes to mind for this year was the Heroes pack for 25k. That was, I don't think that could be beaten from a mistake. But
Do you
would
know,
you
I
class
had-
this as like a mistake or?
With the Foot Heroes pack, I had 24k.
Oh.
And I went to buy. I didn't have enough, and I went to like quick sell a couple of players, and by the time I'd done it, the pack was gone.
Oh my god.
So I lost out big time to that. But I don't think. I think you can class it as a mistake now because it seems like they've adjusted his stats or they've adjusted the visual stats and then annoyed players. So I think you can class it as a mistake. Yeah. But I don't.
It's a tough one because you can't prove it one way or the other.
Exactly.
But even so, I think it would be a mistake. I think it still would be a mistake because it's either a mistake where they accidentally made it public, or it's a mistake where it was just an honest mistake.
Yeah, I would like to see them explain a little bit more. So
Yeah.
we'll see if they comment any more on that. And for the latest, you can check out mirror.co.uk/gaming, or we'll have all the latest FIFA news on there. Talking about controversy and Call of Duty, we go on to our next topic, which is, according to leaks, the Warzone 2 Season 2 update has been delayed. So the next big Call of Duty Warzone 2 update was expected to drop on Wednesday, February the 1st, as this coincides with the Warzone 2 Season 1 Battle Pass expiry date, so it makes sense that this would signal the start of Season 2. However, data miner at Codsploits Images says that Warzone 2 Season 2 could actually kick off 2 weeks later than expected. Apparently, a Season 1 bundle is set to be released on Thursday, February the 2nd, which has an expiration date of Wednesday, February 15th, which means that only then we could see the second season update. Based on this new information, Mirror Gaming now expects Warzone 2 Season 2 to launch on or around Wednesday, February the 15th, at 6 p.m. GMT, 1 p.m. ET, or 10 a.m. PT, rather than the initial date of February the 1st. I don't know if you know this, Matt, or Tom, if you're listening, but this is eerily similar to what happened with Call of Duty Vanguard and the original Warzone last year at this exact time. So last year, Call of Duty Vanguard and Call of Duty Warzone Season 2 was delayed for 2 weeks from February the 2nd, 2021, and which pushed back till February the 14th because they wanted to concentrate on delivering the right experience for players. So there was a 2-week update almost exactly a year ago. The dates are only 1 or 2 days out from what happened last year, which is really interesting. I think the topic for me to talk about, the discussion question is, would you mind if there's a 2-week delay, if they fixed some of the issues that players have been reporting on? Or do you still think that whatever happens during this delay, it's too far gone now? Do you think it's recoverable? Do you think this delay potentially could help out the game?
I don't think the delay will help the game. I think
give them more time
is,
to fix issues.
Yeah, I think whatever it is that they deliver has to be, for them to pull it back. Everything they deliver over the course of the next year has to really be like well received. And they haven't got great track record of that, so it doesn't give me any confidence that even when they deliver it on the 15th, that there aren't going to be major things wrong with it. So I don't think that they're suddenly gonna, 2 weeks is gonna give them enough time to like be like, oh, this is perfect. And we don't really know what's coming in Season 2. We got an idea, and it might be because they're trying to introduce a resurgence map and they need more time. But to be honest, I think a general rule of thumb is when you need more time, it means it's not ready, and 2 weeks ain't gonna do it. You need to have it ready to go and then announce a date. Like they can't be this constant. At this stage with Warzone, you expect delays for everything. You expect delays for anything that they put out, patch fixes or anything. Like you just don't. I think the problem with it is the trust is gone. So people that are looking forward to Season 2 which was me, like I was looking forward to actually thinking maybe it's playable now. I think that all it is more of the same at this stage. It's just disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. And even when it comes out on the 15th, if it's the 15th, I wouldn't be surprised if it's not the 15th and it ends up not coming out until the 1st of March or something.
I think that it ties into that kind of whole debate, isn't it, on kind of games not being ready. I think when you look back at the Call of Duty Next event, if we look back and in hindsight, the fact that even then, a month before release, they weren't going to have loadouts in the game, and then they changed their mind, and there was all sorts of things that were still up in the air about the game at that stage, a month before release. When you look back now, you think they should have been ahead. They should have been a bit ahead at that stage and knowing exactly what they wanted to do. And some of the changes, maybe they focused a little bit too much time on, like the new gulag, the new looting system, stuff that no one really wanted. New DMZ mode, for example. It just kind of plays into the whole thing of, would you have obviously back in September, everyone was desperate for it because we could only play Caldera, but we could play Rebirth Island, and we could play Fortune's Keep. So there was still some stuff there to keep us there. But at that stage, do you think, honestly, what would have been your reaction in September if Activision turned around and said, actually, guys, we're not going to release this in November, we're going to release it in March? What would have been your reaction to that?
I think I would have been, thank goodness for that, because
really,
because they're not rushing it. And they've got a history of rushing things and it not being ready. I always said when Modern Warfare 2 was announced and then they announced Warzone literally to be released a month later, I said, it's going to go wrong. It's going to go so badly wrong if they do that, because the game clearly won't be ready and they need to wait until March. Or I said initially February. I think they need to wait till at least February to release Warzone. It's just always the same. You
honestly would have been fine with it. You honestly would have been fine with it at that stage.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a different breed, mate. I only started playing Warzone like a year previous,
That's
didn't I?
true.
So
that's true.
So in that time I'd had 2 new maps and I got into Rebirth, and there was Fortune's Keep, which I was just getting my head around, and I initially hated Fortune's Keep, and then it became one of my favorite modes towards the end. And then it was gone. So it wouldn't have bothered me that much. Okay. It wouldn't have bothered me at all, actually. But what it does do is all it did when they said it's being released in November. All it did to me was spell out trouble, and I would have rather them waited for a Warzone 2. No one was particularly asking for one, a new game, a whole new game. Modern Warfare 2 and a new map would have been all right. Imagine like Al Mazrah in Warzone 1. That would have been fine for another year, and they could have been all that time. Like they could have even launched Warzone 2 with Al Mazrah, so everyone was familiar, and then with these updated game mechanics and whatnot. But it's not. It's not a surprise to me that it's delayed, and I still don't think the delay is really going to do anything spectacularly positive.
Well, it's not confirmed yet. It's still leaked, so it still might come on February the 1st, and we might get a Resurgence map, and they could turn it around. I think a Resurgence map, good Resurgence map would really do that, and it'd be interesting to see what they do with the looting system, because it's very, very DMZ heavy, the looting system, which won't work in a Resurgence map, like a quick map. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Talking of rumours, though, there are also rumours about Starfield being delayed. Oh, not again, please. The sources from a content creator called Mr. Matty Plays on the Defining Duke episode 106. He said it's possible that Starfield could be delayed yet again, being pushed out to the second half of 2023 to allow Bethesda to apply the finishing touches to one of the most eagerly anticipated games in history. They did comment that it was, sources had told him, so obviously this is still unconfirmed and things, but I think it just plays into the whole, look, we haven't ever had Starfield, so it's been kind of talked about. So I think it's a different league to Warzone, where we know what Warzone can be, and we know how good it can be, and not having it in its right place is really disappointing. But I think with something like Starfield, knowing what's happened with Cyberpunk and things like that, I would, delay it as much as you want. Like, I've got time. Like, just don't get it wrong, please. Just take your time, guys.
That's the thing, isn't it? With how long it's been, in the works, it's either going to be absolutely incredible, or the expectations will be so high that it will flop massively.
Yeah, that's what the danger is. I think that's exactly what happened with Cyberpunk. They pushed it so hard from a marketing perspective talked about how Keanu Reeves was in it. I had him plastered everywhere, all over billboards. And as soon as the game came out, it was just unplayable, like with all the issues and things. So, look, Bethesda, if you're watching, just delay it if you want. If it's not ready, don't bring it out. It's fine. We've gone through too many times where games are unfinished. So, yeah, just take your time. We'll be here when it's ready. Don't worry, we'll play it. Yeah, and speaking of, we'll be there to play it. I know last week, Matt, we talked with Jasmine about the games you're looking forward to in 2023, and we talked about some of the most exciting games. Something that I realised after we talked about that segment was that I never mentioned EA Sports FC, which is obviously replacing the EA Sports FIFA series. That is coming to an end. FIFA 23 is the last EA Sports FIFA game there will ever be, or until they patch things up in a decade or so maybe, but for now that's the last ever EA Sports FIFA game. FIFA are going their separate ways, and EA Sports are releasing their own game called EA Sports FC. It will have much the same features and game modes as we used to, but I just wanted to ask, before we get into like why you're excited about it, Lewis, I think, are you worried about like the same FIFA? When we talk about FIFA in video games, it's so like muscle memory, deeply embedded in the brain to just say, "Oh, you want to jump on FIFA?" or "Oh, I'm going to have a game on FIFA," or "Oh, how's your team on FIFA?" Like that kind of is so deeply embedded. Like, do you think that will happen with EA Sports FC, and how will they manage that transition? It's going to be a difficult one for them, isn't it?
Like, to be personally honest, I can see myself calling it FIFA after just that muscle memory. If I speak to my friends about it, it's a lot easier to say FIFA than EA Sports FC, do you know what I mean? And I don't, how do you even abbreviate that? Just EA? But then that's a whole company. It's weird to say, "Oh, do you want to play EA?" Because that's like not a thing. And like losing that name, it could impact how the game sells and stuff. If you think about it, because FIFA's worldwide. It's known by nearly everyone. So like, losing such a big partner could make a huge difference. And like you mentioned, especially if FIFA end up making a football game of their own, which they've been rumored to do. I think that FIFA title, it's so popular in the gaming world. But at the end of the day, I feel like EA Sports FC, it can be a massive success if EA just do what the fans are asking for. I feel like they've been asking for so little for so long, and they've just always put it off, or they've just fed it in small amounts to try and slightly please people. And this is the first time where EA have sort of been free to do their game. They won't have to go through FIFA at all or anything, and I feel like they could really make it a good game if they just listen to feedback from players and fans.
Do you think I think the thing about this EA Sports FC is there's no excuses. EA Sports have been blaming FIFA for not being able to change the game the way they want to. Like during this whole process of talking about this divorce, this very high profile divorce between EA Sports and FIFA, they've talked about not being able to do things that want to do because of the FIFA license, all that kind of stuff. There's no excuses now. If EA Sports FC still has the same issues that the last few FIFA games has had, then there's no excuse. And if you look at the future of like football video games, with just the behemoth that is EA Sports kind of controlling it, it'll be a shame, because we need that game to be really good for everyone.
Yeah,
really.
Like I mentioned just then, there's not a lot's been asked of EA, I feel like, when improving every FIFA title. And for the last 5-6 years or so, I feel like it's always been the exact same points that people are making. They wanted crossplay, which we finally got on some game modes in FIFA 23, online career modes, things like that. It's just certain little things that I think would really make the game special, and keep fans happy. Because like you mentioned, if when this comes out, EA Sports FC, if they don't implement any of the ideas that fans have had, or they really be creative with it, then I can see them losing a lot of fans. If FIFA then bring out their own game, people will think, well, what's going to stop me from trying out this one? Because if FIFA made their own game and they made like an online career mode, and EA didn't, then it could see a big switch in what becomes the most popular football game.
Yeah, I think FIFA have already said there will be a FIFA 24. that comes out in 2024. Whether that's another publisher who kind of works with them on that. I think there's been rumors about 2K, who might recognise because of the NBA series and all the controversy around those games. But yeah, it'd be really interesting. I want you just to, because I know we talk off camera quite a lot about the fact that pro clubs doesn't have crossplay. The community was so upset when EA announced that crossplay was going to be in every game mode other than the one which is the most social one.
Yeah, that's the game mode that would have, it would have affected the most. Crossplay, it's all good having that in Ultimate Team, but I've actually only seen more problems come from that with people on PC, managing to find ways to sort of hack the game and get results change the way that the gameplay is. Pro clubs is such a social game mode, like you mentioned. It can be, if you wanted to, 11v11. Like, there's a way for you to play with all your friends. I have friends who play on PlayStation, I play on Xbox, and we don't get to play against each other when we're in our own homes because there has been no crossplay, and it's not the same playing on seasons or an Ultimate Team or anything like that. So I think if EA made crossplay available for pro clubs next year, I think that will keep the majority of the community extremely happy.
Yeah.
And they've already got they've already guaranteed they'll have all the licensing rights and all that, so that realism, which is a big pull factor, will still remain. But I think, like I said, there's one or two little wishes that fans are making, and if they make those, come to life, then I think it could be a success.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see where they go with it. And obviously with the name EA Sports FC, I think a lot of the rumors suggest that it'll be one title and it'll be free potentially, and it'll be released as an update every year or constant updates, that kind of stuff, which goes against the whole EA Sports FIFA model. Maybe that was FIFA's idea. Maybe they wanted it as a yearly release. We'll never know for certain. But it's really interesting to see, where they go from here and how it changes. Matt, from someone who plays the 2K games, what would you expect from a FIFA game that is developed and published by 2K?
I don't think they can do it. No, I don't think they can do it. I think 2K. I mean, they've got some good golf games. They've got their biggest game is that and NBA 2K. NBA 2K is mostly broken most of the time. It's gone downhill since previous releases. 2K are a company that seem very hell-bent on making as much money as they can, which FIFA might love. But it often leads to a lot of player dissatisfaction, in the community. So I think if 2K were to take it on, I mean, FIFA might and 2K might love that at first because they've got potentially got the same goal, which is just to make as much money as they can. But what I think will happen is there's two ways it will go, I think. I think the first is, I mean, when you're rebranding a football game, when you've called it FIFA for so long, and now EA are making their own game, the most important part is getting the marketing right to keep people on board. And a big part of that is the name. And EA Sports FC is a terrible name. So
it really is.
It doesn't roll off the tongue. It's got no cultural
What do you mean? The shortened versions he asked for.
Yeah,
that's really good, isn't it?
We wrote a whole piece on potential names. And
we did.
I remember mentioning I think we mentioned EA Sports FC, and that was just one we just it's not going to be that.
It's just so dry. It doesn't. Yeah, dry. But the way it could work is like Lewis, like you were saying about if they made it like a free to play game or something like that, where the model was built in. It's similar to like Warzone. All the money they make is in game, and it's in game purchases. It makes those in game purchases feel more more fair because the game's free. So you're getting a free game and you can choose to throw money at it if you want. Like most people will more likely throw, the people that wouldn't throw any money at FIFA are people that might throw 80 quid in a year at a free FIFA game. And once you've thrown 80 quid at a game, you're probably going to throw 150 and then maybe 80 quid the year after. So it's like, because you don't feel like you're being cheated as much, but that's the only way it could work. If they were to release like titles yearly or every 2 years or whatever their plan would be, and do it very similar to how FIFA is already set up, I think what will happen is both companies will go their separate ways. They'll lose a lot of money, and then they'll realize they have to get back together to make this financially viable, and they'll have to. Like, it's kind of like that whole issue with Tom Holland wasn't going to play Spider-Man anymore, and it was like, but that's what the fans want, so we have to make it work because the Sony licensing and stuff.
Yeah.
And Sony wouldn't talk to Marvel and vice versa, and they were trying to make, they'd had chats in the past, and Sony would never let go of it. And then Sony realized, hold on, if we do this, we might actually make some money off the back of Marvel. And they did it, and they made loads of money off the back of Marvel. And then they realized, actually, this is more beneficial to do it this way because we hold the rights, but actually we're letting them make the films. So I think FIFA might realize, okay, we might hold all the rights and be able to sort of like say, no, we can't do this. But actually, if we let them do it, we're going to make loads of money because since the split, we've lost billions of pounds. Yeah. Like that's what I sort of foresee.
Yeah,
it is intriguing because it's interesting to think like it will sort of reveal who the problem is in a way. Like if both release a game and then it turns out EA's is awful and FIFA's is really good and FIFA's is full of new ideas and stuff, then it will be very obvious that it was EA making the decisions to not release things, and it could be, pretty impactful towards any future releases EA they make on sport games. If people are like, oh, well, they made this sport game, it was awful for 10 or however 30 years. They then, released their own game and it was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to mention for the record, Matt, that 2K Games, his parent company, is Take-Two Interactive. Their portfolio contains small little indie games. I'm not sure if you've heard of Grand Theft Auto and BioShock and Red Dead Redemption and Borderlands. All them like little games that like no one plays.
I'm talking about the sports games that they make.
I know. But what I'm saying is Take-Two Interactive, if they were to take on the FIFA license, they've got enough resource in-house, I would say, to give it a good go. And it would be interesting, like Lewis said, who makes the best one, may the best company win.
Here's my prediction.
Just before you predict, Matt,
okay, all right.
WazDuck TV, sorry, on the comments saying they should call it Sensible Soccer. I did Google that, actually. I think there is a Sensible Soccer. The last one that was released was in 2007 for Windows Vista, which is a remake of the 96 version. So that name is available. So thank you very much, Matt. Sorry, continue.
I'm going to predict that both of them make mediocre football games.
That's a fair bet. Yeah, that's
that's my prediction.
I think EA
based
might
on nothing
also change name in the future as well. I think it's like the Washington Commanders. When they had to change their name, they couldn't think of a name, so they just called themselves Washington Football Team for 2 years, and it was the most boring name in the NFL. And they finally changed it to Washington Commanders. So it could be a case that EA make it EA Sports FC, spend 2 years to think of a name, and then they'll finally rename it in 2 years' time.
Well, in the comment, have you got any other names that you can suggest for EA Sports? Obviously, they're struggling for money at the moment, so they're probably not thinking of ideas and stuff. They only made a couple of billion this year on FIFA, so just let us know in the comments if you've got any names, any suggestions. Lewis, I can't think that article. It was any decent names that we thought of. Might give them a few ideas.
I'll have to look through it again.
Yeah.
I think there was. I think they shortened it to EAFC. We had that as like a main name, didn't we?
Yeah,
and it was just like EA football. Like there's not you have EA and then something in front of it after it. Sorry, there's not a huge amount of things you could do. I think.
Yeah. What do you think they'll do with Ultimate Team? Do you think they'll just call it UT?
UT. Yeah, it'll be UT. It's just Ultimate Team. But
That's
EA
horrendous.
Ultimate Team. So EA out.
EA out.
Yeah.
The Ultimate Team, yeah.
That's horrendous, isn't it? That's horrendous. It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, does it? But no, look, there's rumors that, like, as you talked about before, that EA Sports aren't, they're being held back by FIFA, and that's what they've said publicly. So we'll just have to see if they're right. It'll be interesting, nonetheless. But we're expecting EA to release their game a bit later on this year. Maybe around like October time, if it follows the kind of same pattern as previous ones, late September, October time. But I think FIFA said that FIFA 24 won't come till 2024, so we'll have a bit of time. I mean, they haven't even announced who's going to make it with them yet, and I doubt FIFA have got game developers on their payroll at the moment. So we'll see where they go from there. But yeah, just talking of updates, Fortnite has had its first major update of 2023. There's some really cool stuff like the Falcon Scout, which is a remote-controlled machine that can be deployed to mark opponents, open containers, and even pick up loot. There's also some new reality augments, and they've also fixed the issue that caused them to disable the Deku Smash in Battle Royale as well. So it's been re-enabled, which is good news. I know Jasmine was talking about that today. Matt, I know you've toyed with the idea of Fortnite before.
Yeah.
And obviously with Unreal Engine 5, it looks incredible now with the graphics as it is. And obviously you have the Zero build mode, which is like pure Battle Royale as well. Do you think how likely are you to give Fortnite a go?
Well, I do play it occasionally. And I do do enjoy it.
Thanks for the invite.
It's I play it in secret when when you're not looking. No, I play it occasionally, and it's fun, but it doesn't. Like, I find it gets boring quite quickly.
Would a first-person mode help?
What options between the two? Like,
well, just having it in the same almost way of Call of Duty, so you're more similar to, be more familiar with the mechanics and how the game plays and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't think it's a question of not being used to it, like in terms of it being third person. I think a first person mode would be a good option. Just like, I would quite like to see being able to switch perspectives. Like, so if you wanted to play first person, you could, without it being a whole different mode. I would have probably done that in Warzone, is like, instead of having a separate mode. But I don't know whether it's just because I'm past the generation of people that play Fortnite, but and I'm
game is for everyone,
Matt. Slightly older now. No, but I mean the hype, like when it was like, there was huge hype around it, and I kind of missed that train.
Like the Ariana Grande concert, like
it was so big at one point. I mean, it still is, but like it was so big at one point that it was just so ridiculous how big it was, and I missed all of that. So I don't know whether it's because I missed that hype, and now going in to play it, it's like, it's good fun. I like it. I'll play it. It's a really good game if I want to just jump in and play a few games and then jump off. Whereas something other FPS titles sometimes feel more involved, and I'm sure there's more levels to Fortnite that I miss out on because I'm not, I don't know all of the mechanics, and I haven't committed myself to try and be like the best Fortnite player in the world. So but I definitely would like to see a first person like mode, like not mode, like to be able to switch to a first person view, a bit like you can do that in PUBG, and I like that about that game. So that would be good, but I don't think I don't know. Like, I've got nothing bad to say about Fortnite, but I haven't got anything that's like it just isn't a game that can keep me there for hours and hours and hours. It's a game that can keep me there for maybe like half an hour to an hour. And I enjoy that half an hour to an hour very much, but then after that I'm kind of a bit bored. Sorry.
No, it's your opinion. We encourage opinions. I want you to talk openly, and that generates debate, doesn't it? Which is good for a podcast. People talking. That's good. Jasmine says yes. Deku smash in all caps. Yes. That's back, which is good. She also says so many people thought it wouldn't come back. So glad that they actually brought it back. She also said zero build mode is so good. And I actually prefer third-person mode. You get much more visibility. I doubt I'd play first-person, to be honest. That's really interesting. Like, I've grown up playing, Call of Duty, Rainbow Six, even like Medal of Honor, those type of games, like where they're first-person. And I'm just used to that. But then again, I love Gears of War as well, which was third-person. So, maybe that's the way FPS games are going. You should be able to switch between them. But Lewis, I know we talked off camera that you're not a big FPS player. You don't really play games about shooting and things like that. Is there anything in particular that you think that could draw you to that environment? Because I'm sure we'll get you streaming it at some point, just for a bit of content. But what would you look for in a game? What would draw you to that? I mean, if all your friends are playing it, what would be the thing that would push you to it?
Like, do you know what? I have given it a go before, and I did like it. It's just I think I missed that, like Matt said, when it was really popular, when it was like the biggest game in the world by far. Like when Ninja was playing it live stream with Drake, like when it was around that time. That's when it was like at its best, I think. And I had a few friends who played it and stuff, and over lockdown I got into it a bit. But I think it's just a case that I was never good at it. And I think that's the main factor with games, is that I'll play it with people who are already really good at it, and I ended up being awful, and then I ended up just like losing. And yeah, I think that's the main factor with me, is that I end up just not being as good. So I need to find the time to put the hours in, get good at it, and then I probably would enjoy them.
Yeah, that's it. It's putting the hours in as well, and also picking the right teammate. If you can be carried for a little bit, and just kind of learn the ropes as you go along, that's a really good place to be. I know Matt was like that for a while with me. I had to carry Matt for a while on Warzone, but he's pretty good now, so he doesn't need that support.
It's soon changed.
It soon changed with the hours. Jasmine says, "Don't worry, Lewis. You can play with me. I'm terrible, so you won't feel like that." There you go. And if skill-based matchmaking is a thing, you'll be in a lobby with people who are just as bad as you, so it will work. So that's one positive to take away from skill-based matchmaking. But I think that's all we got time for, guys. Hour and a half, decent. Length. Yeah. Lewis, I really hope you enjoyed your first appearance. You got your first cap on the walkthrough.
Yeah.
That'll come in the post. You can hang it on your wall as your first cap. So thank you for joining us. Really appreciate your insight into all things FIFA, sports, and EA Sports. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. Looking forward to my next appearance now. Yeah.
Cool. I'm sure you get the call up at some stage. I'm trying to fit as many football references as I can in. And Matt, thanks again for your time, for your input, for your opinions. Really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Cool.
It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone who watched the walkthrough this week. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for all the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. We've got some really cool stuff on our channel. So just go and take a look at it. You won't be disappointed, I promise. Have a good week. We'll catch you next Wednesday at 4 p.m. GMT again for the walkthrough, where we'll be discussing the latest in gaming news. But for now, see you later.